Thank you for joining us today and welcome to our third Class CONVOS talk in partnership with Second Act Gallery and funded by Arts Council. I'm Sarah Metcalf, founder and director of the Working Class Creatives Database, and I'm here with Chanel Windass, who is the co-director. And we're very excited to have you with us as we welcome two incredible artists, Leckey and Rene Matić. Both of these artists explore their personal identities and experiences through their work, and we are honoured to have them share their insights with us today. Chanel and I have created this series of talks in response to feedback from our members. In October 2023, we conducted a survey where many of you expressed a desire for more discussions on representation, sales, confidence, portfolios, and pathways into the arts. A recurring theme, particularly among working class creatives, was the emotional labour involved in our work, how we often draw on our personal narratives and experiences in our art. Today, we'll delve into these themes and explore the personal and emotional investments the working class artists pour into their creations and the impact this has on their practices. Before I hand over to Alex of Second Act Gallery, just a bit of housekeeping. This event will be recorded and made available online. Please keep all your mics off and cameras off unless you're speaking or responding, and kindly adhere to our code of conduct, which can be found in the chat. We've also invited members to submit questions beforehand, and you're welcome to add any additional questions via the chat. We'll try to address as many as we can during the session. Thank you again for being here, and without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Alex.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just going to pop in really quickly and introduce the gallery who are a partner in this. So I'm the director of the Second Act Gallery, and the gallery opened about 3 years ago. The primary purpose at the time was to start getting commercial representation for artists who are operating in the North, as there's such a small set of opportunities for people to progress who want to progress in that career track as an artist. So I opened the gallery originally online, and one of the things I've really identified that isn't exclusive to people from the North, but also is a really big parallel, is that while people in the North face geographic barriers, because really still at this point, unfortunately, you need to have some sort of London-centric focus or representation for your practice, that working class artists were often facing similar barriers, but also a lot of things around different barriers that we're talking about in these talks specifically, but that will be around sometimes about confidence, sometimes about funding, sometimes about the circles that you're in. So the gallery works to promote and support artists from both of those different backgrounds. So a year ago, I opened a gallery down in London, so I got an opportunity to have a space, which is in East London. And through that gallery, attracted Arts Council funding, and part of that was to start working in partnership with people who are better placed to support working class artists than I necessarily am through my capacity and also my experience. So I'm partnering with Working Class Creators Database also to just share the wealth of that funding, and because it's very difficult to attract Arts Council funding at certain times. So these guys are doing this amazing job of presenting these talks. So we've got a series of talks, and this is number 3, I think, in a row. And yeah, we're working in this partnership. What I just want to say is very quickly, if you are someone who is interested in the work that we're doing, I'm just going to do a quick share screen. We've got an exhibition opening. Here we go. Next Thursday. And so the information is there. So I'll pop the link to that in there. So I've got an exhibition opening with 2 artists. So what we're doing this year through our Arts Council funding is presenting a series of duo shows. And in that duo, there's always an artist who is from either a working class or northern background, or they may be both, paired with an artist from any background. So in this particular circumstance, Eli Craven is an artist from America, and he's been paired with Lydia McCaig. So the exhibition is called The Temptation Of, and so that's what we're doing this year, is these series of duo shows, and then each exhibition then tours to a secondary venue, which is in a regional space, primarily in the North. So we're working to kind of expand artists' visibility in front of collectors, and also opportunities for audiences in regional spaces to see art as well. So I'm really pleased with what we're doing at the moment. You're all invited. So 6 till 8 o'clock next Thursday. It's in Shoreditch in a small space. I'll put the link into the chat box. I will put the flyer into the chat box. the exhibition, I'm calling it. It's a bit Sturzaker, it's a bit sexy. If you're interested in his work and things around that parallel, I think you might enjoy this show. So you're all welcome. And if you would like to click on that link as well and subscribe to us, you can be invited to all the other events. So that's it. And thanks to you guys for organising this. And I'll pass it back to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. So we'll probably kick off with a little introduction from both artists. If Rene, you want to go first, then we'll pass over to Mark, and then we'll go into the questions.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me. It was very exciting. Okay, so yeah, my name is Rene Matić. My pronouns are they, them, and I am originally from Peterborough in the East Midlands, but I live and work in London. I'm an artist, that's why I'm here. And my work spans across photography, film, sculpture, lots of different mediums, but I always say that it's like a meeting place that I describe as rudeness, which is really, it kind of means to interrupt and exist in between all of these different places. I also like to refer to it as departing from a midland, because when you look at what constitutes the English Midlands, it calls for a disambiguation, meaning that its ambiguity requires different interpretations in different contexts for it to become more clear or certain. And I find this such a useful metaphor when thinking about multiple truths and multiple selves. I'm often led by subcultural, political dance and music movements such as Northern Soul, Ska, and Two-Tone, all of which I believe have existed and could exist as portals where one can queer and reimagine sites of intimacy, especially between West Indian and white working class culture in Britain, which is my culture. And when I say that I'm led by them, I guess I mean the politics and the aesthetics and the language, and most importantly, the mood. And a quote that I remembered today that was helpful, that I return to often, it's about dance floors, and it's imagine escaping a kind of fire to summon another kind of fire. And I feel like this, for me, is what subcultural production is, and this is what dancing does, which is why I'm always returning back to that. But yeah, my research practice has always included images, and I would say that photography is the thing that I'm most well known for. And I use photographs, I guess, to order and disorder. I'm very interested in post-war Britain, where we start to see the decline of empire and this kind of diminishing force that is Britain. I kind of just love to hate it and like hate to love it. Everything about it, all the dates, the laws, the policies, politicians, propaganda, aesthetics, and music, and all of the like milieu that surrounds individual moments in British history. I'm really interested in searching for the self within these things that are often opposing and contradicting even to themselves, let alone when you insert a body like mine into the mix. So yeah, those are two words that I use a lot, and I identify with as a marginalized person in this country. I'm always opposing and contradicting and undermining is like my favorite word at the moment. It really excites me a lot. But yeah, there's this constant tussle between frustration and freedom. And yeah, I came to art, I think, because of those very two things. You know, I wasn't very academic, but I wanted to learn because I felt a lot in my body and I wanted to know why. I wanted to know about history, and I learned through pictures, I think, because I wasn't the best reader. I'm still not. I've had to teach myself a lot of things. And I learned mostly through pictures. And yeah, art has always been there for me throughout everything. And it really has been the only way that I've ever known how to communicate with myself. And most importantly, myself, you know, it's everything. I kind of welcome that as a cliche. Because it saves me every day, and it's a dream, you know, but it's a hard dream, and it's hard constantly undermining and contradicting, and to be making personal confessional work in real time. I have a tattoo on my back that says "Born British, Die British," which was like a performance kind of thing, artwork that I made, and it's hard to have a tattoo like that on your back on an evening where over 100 different groups of fascist far-right nationalists are gathering all around the country. You know, it would be hard without the fucking tattoo, but attempting to stake a claim in something that so often doesn't serve you is really tiring. And always talking about finding love and finding intimacy is tiring when you can't find it. And especially when you're trying to monetize all that trauma as well. It's a whole fuckery. But so I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Mark today, because there's a lot we can get through. And I hate moaning, you know, but I think both Mark and I enjoy dance floors for a reason, you know, and the reality is because there are fires that need escaping, you know. So that's kind of what I mean about that tussle between frustration and freedom that we're constantly going to and from. But yeah, that's me.
Gorgeous, thank you. Mark?
That was great. I was just going to say my age. That's all I had. I'm gonna have to rise to the occasion now, aren't I? All right, my name is Mark Leckey, and I just turned 60 this year. That's my age. So I came of age back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and when I left school in the Northwest, that's when the Northwest and Liverpool was devastated by Thatcherism, and that was the environment I walked out of school into. No jobs, no hope, straight onto the dole. So I signed on for about, I don't know, nearly 6 years, I think. And in the process of signing on, it was like a little scally. It was like just, got involved with the gang and got in trouble with the police. And it got to the point where someone had to sit me down and say, look, you have to find a way, you have to find a way out of this. And it was my stepdad. I've told this story before, but anyway, it's a good story. So my stepdad, who was a dock worker, wasn't I mean, this is one of the things I wanted to get into, this kind of thing about like being educated through the old kind of union education that was basically a way for working class people to understand politics, and through those politics, understand global politics and the relationship between labor and capital, and much more complex ideas, which I don't know, we'll get into later. But this is my stepdad. Basically doesn't know anything about art, but knows that I can draw because I used to like drawing. And he said this thing that I still think is incredible. He said, everything, as we sit in this room, everything in this room, someone at some point has drawn up, someone has sketched this out, and you have the ability to do that. You have the ability to dream. You have the ability to imagine. And, I don't know, he didn't say instantiate that, but that's the idea that came into my head. You can make these things, you can develop these things, you can create them. And from that, I started going on a path to art school, which importantly at that time was free. And by that time, I was a mature student. So for me to go to art school meant that I was actually financially better off, getting a full grant, housing benefit, all the rest of it. So I went to art school without much thought about art, more that I wanted to be in a band, because that was because I was into music, and my kind of education about aesthetics had come about through music, through sort of record sleeves and sleeve notes and all the rest of it. I kind of understood about Russian constructivism and William Blake. so it's this kind of autodidacticism through music, you know. But I also knew that art schools were a kind of hotbed of you know, British pop culture. So that's why I wanted to go. I wanted to be in a band, and I didn't be in a band, but I got involved in art instead, and it kind of changed me. Both, it was a kind of, yeah, this sort of re-education, where I had to kind of, I feel like I had to kind of give something up for myself in order to become this other person, this other someone who's more suited to art school, you know. And that's been, you know, talking about contradiction and kind of a kind of dialectic, that's been the thing that's kind of, that's the kind of machine that's kind of geared my work since then, really, is that sense of being from somewhere that had an intelligence, you know, had a culture of its own, and then having to kind of like not entirely abandon that, but kind of, you know, basically it's like a memory wipe. I had to kind of wipe those things out in order to accommodate all this new stuff, in order to learn how to be, you know, an intellectual, which is what art school at the time was very much kind of positioned for. You know, we did more reading than we did making. And so, yeah, when I came out of art school, I felt quite embittered in a way. I didn't want to make art anymore, and I didn't make art for 10 years after I left art school. I basically went back on the dole. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
That's great, thank you. So we'll touch up on the questions. We've tried to like whittle them down, like audience questions. You've sort of gone through little themes of what we wanted to ask already, and I think that's great because we wanted to have you together because we think that your works like sing alongside each other really well, but from different generations as well. So yeah, first question is, both of you explore subcultures quite often in your work, music and fashion too. As well as nostalgia, like alongside that, that's a common theme. How do you see nostalgia functioning within your art? Does it serve as a means of reclaiming lost histories, or is it more about critiquing the present?
I think it's interesting because nostalgia obviously means different things to Mark and I. I think I'm nostalgic for a time that he possibly lived through. It doesn't mean that I also think that nostalgia doesn't mean that I am, you know, in like yearning or in celebration of the time. It just means that I call them like these utopias. I just find that there has been moments where things worked. And, you know, I think like, I even think about it in terms of my mum and my dad falling in love. And like, you know, that worked for a moment. And I was produced from that. And Skinheads worked for a moment because it came from white working class culture and, you know, immigrants in Britain. It worked for a moment, but everything seems to kind of be bamboozled in some kind of way when something works. Because of the power that it has and that it holds, and the what's the word? I don't know that I don't know what I'm trying to say, but yeah, I think that nostalgia for us means different things, and yet, Mark, you still do very much use those moments of subculture in your work. For instance, the Tate. I always think about the Tate film that you made, where there is references to Northern Soul and, you know, these moments that I would consider utopia, but I wasn't there, and perhaps you were. So I guess maybe you could say more to what, I don't know, what's the obsession? Why do we go there?
I think, I mean, all right, so you started by saying there's different kinds of nostalgia, right? So nostalgia now is kind of reactionary, right?
Mm.
but I also think nostalgia is algorithmic, right, as well. It's kind of like, it's inescapable, and it's been, you know, machined and kind of, you know, made very functional. It's like, it's, you know, the nostalgic loop is the most kind of lucrative one, in terms of consumerism and stickiness, right? It's like people always go back for nostalgia. So it's a powerful force, both in terms of the politics of it, this kind of the right seek to exploit, and what capitalism seeks to exploit, right? So both these things in tandem, but then there's, you know, I think, so I find myself sometimes, the nostalgia I'm talking about is both this kind of exploitative one, not the right wing one, but the kind of capitalist one. You know, it's especially, I guess, for my age, it's unavoidable. But I think it's present now. It's like whatever generation you hit, they're gonna mine that, right? But anyway, more interestingly, I think that we look back to these things, or I look back to these things, because for me, like you say, that they offer this, you know, there's this moment there of kind of possibility, right? There's a moment where things, you know, there was a hole, there was a hole that was created, there was a hole that kind of gave some kind of sense of hope or potential, right? And, you know, and as you look back on these things now, which seem to be receding further away, like, say, like the rave, you know, era, and just the ability that to kind of mobilize such a mass of people to concentrate, you know, to be concentrated in such a group across the country, and then I lost my thread there. You know, to find this kind of energy, this kind of power that could, like I say, mobilize these people, is increasingly seems more and more impossible to grasp, right? So I think that's one reason to look back, but also for me, I think it's like accessing, or you talked about portals as well before. It's like a portal back to you know, to my background, which the further I kind of progress in the art world becomes more lost to me.
Yes.
And I feel more you know, that transformation has come with like benefits, and you know, it's expansive and all the rest of it, but at the same time there's something that I've had to give up in order to become that. And so sometimes it's like this way of returning to these things that still, you know, that I don't want to give up, that I don't want to forget.
It's like a duty, it feels, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's like a duty, but it's,
I refuse to forget this, and I need to, yeah, keep. I kind of feel like I don't have a choice other than to, you know, be nostalgic, I suppose. And I think that it's because, you know, we live constantly as a byproduct of the stuff that's happened before us, and in order to follow and to understand where we're at politically, socially, culturally, you know, there's a duty to go back.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I think that's the bind, isn't it? Is that there's a kind of, you know, to acknowledge your history is like I say, sometimes seen as reactionary, right? But you have no choice in that, because that is part of your identity. That's who you are. That's where you're from, right? And and it carries with you anyway, you know.
Yeah, it's
So you
almost
can't, you know,
not
you can't.
choice, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you know, and you know, this is one of the things that always frustrated me about art school, is a kind of idea that you kind of you know, that these things are seen as being kind of parochial, right? In some ways, or just or you know, they're so localized, they're not important, and that actually you're participating in the global art world, and you're, you know, and that there's the questions you should be answering are more kind of universal, right? And so, yeah, like I say, these are just ways of finding a way out of that, because I found that I would find that frustrating and kind of sort of deadening, and so, yeah, to build a bridge or whatever, to go back to like incidents from my youth, is like, it's not nostalgic. It's like I say, it's a way of returning to some idea that is outside of that, or be or you know, or beyond that. Is beyond this kind of like very prescriptive, you know, but essentially middle class values. I think that's. I think I should get more specific. It's like the sort of middle class values that when I first went to art school, I kind of felt that it was necessary for me to kind of like accommodate and kind of learn those values, and that the values of where I'd come from was seen as being I don't know, just like I say, parochial and kind of, yeah, and sort of not sophisticated, right? Whereas, you know, I remember things as being very sophisticated, you know. And I think the thing that, you know, when you talk about those movements as well, that's what I was trying to get at before, those you know, that mobilization is the intelligence that's there, right? Think about subcultures that, you know, the reason I'm interested in them is it points to an intelligence.
Yes, the urgency that just
comes. Exactly. That isn't acknowledged, or isn't, you know, it's just seen as a, you know, less so now, but, you know, it used to be just seen as a kind of mob or a mindless mob or whatever. It's the same with like riots, right?
Yeah.
There's an intelligence there.
Yes.
There's you know, there's an accord amongst that group.
An ability to mobilize as
Yeah.
well. It's, you know, something that, yeah, we're not actually experiencing so much anymore on the left, especially.
No, well, that's the problem. That's you know, that's part of the horror of what's just happened for me, is just is seeing that kind of you know, what I always thought of as a kind of duty in some ways, you know, to riot. You know, being now kind of the preserver of the right. It's like, I just find that so soul crushingly depressing, you know. Yeah, that makes me feel quite hopeless.
Yeah, me too.
You know, but I don't like to be hopeless, so I'm not gonna dwell on that. But yeah, that was why it was so, one of the reasons why it was so frightening. Because yeah, that just seeing that intelligence sort of being exploited and misused, and not being intelligent, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Being not intelligent.
But I think it's right to also say that there is an intelligence there. It doesn't mean that, you know, it's a positive one. But I think that, yeah, we could take a leaf out of the book, you know, they're fucking able to rally around and get some, I don't know what, they're not really getting anything done, but, you know, there's definitely a big disparity between their ability to mobilize in comparison to ours, I suppose, at the moment. And it is a bit like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, and to feel hopeless is even worse.
Yeah. No, it is. It is.
Yeah. Chanel, have you got another question for us? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was really thorough. Great.
Does that mean long?
So with you sort of touching on these themes, how does that determine what medium you use? Does it influence, or are you driven by the medium and then a work is sort of made on the back of that?
Oh, mediums is literally the hardest thing ever, because you could do anything with everything. But it comes eventually, you know, it tells you itself. I couldn't, it's not really something that I can put into words. It's just a feeling, and you go, this is the way, this is the language, you know, it presents itself. Obviously, predominantly, I'm normally working with photography and some kind of an image, so it might be film or photography. But images are everywhere. So it's about how to create this image, be it in a sculpture or even in sound, you know, sound pieces. Just, it's about building that image, but it always comes from the feeling, what's going to evoke the most out of a body that is outside of the experience that I'm trying to articulate. So I couldn't really give any advice or even tell you, pinpoint what happens, but it normally comes to me. Like, for instance, because I've spoken about the tattoo on my back, I just saw that one day on free research that some geezer had this tattoo, and I was like, well, there it is. Something articulates itself to me or presents itself to me, and then I'm like, well, thank you. It's like a gift, really. It's just about absorbing that and translating what I experience in the best way possible. But it is a difficult thing to do, because obviously it could be anything. And sometimes I think, oh, I showed that as a picture, but maybe I should have done that as a sound piece. But actually, that's what an art practice is. You just do it again and again and again and again and again and again until you feel some kind of like release, you know. What do you think, Mark?
I think, I mean, I said, all right, I spoke before about leaving art school and not wanting to make art or not doing art for 10 years. And what led me back to art was that I started making video. And the reason I started making video is because at that point you could. I mean, prior to that, you'd have to go into an editing suite and hire out an editing suite. And then very, very rapidly, you're able to like afford cheap home computer and kind of editing software, and you could make video, right? So that's kind of stuck with me, really, in terms of like what I make is like, I want to make, like, I love video as a kind of as a medium, because it's so easily, it's so easy to make, but it's also so easy to access, and it's, you know, it's mobile, it can cross platforms, all the rest of it. It's very, I guess it's the most basic democratic medium there is. It's the closest you get to sound, I would say. And photography, you know, photography falls into the same camp. So these are just things that are like, you know, and as you watch things on social media, people just learning to be very adept with video very quickly. It's like something that you can pick. It's a language now. It's a language, right? It's a kind of, it's a sophisticated language that's, to me, is easier to, it's more accessible and kind of, and more useful maybe than writing.
Yes, I think that this is important also in terms of what how, just to jump in, sorry Mark to interrupt.
That's good.
About what is afforded to us at the time.
Yeah.
Always worry about, as my career grows, you know, I'm very much still stuck in, I need to be able to do this by myself with no help, because that's what I'm used to on a budget that is near enough, you know, doesn't exist. So I think that while I say it presents itself to me and that I can't really decide what medium. At the end of the day, I'm always going to go as small as possible and as cheap as possible, because that's where I feel comfortable. And sometimes I think if I was presented with a huge budget where I could, you know, do what a lot of people do in huge installations, huge, like throwing money at the thing, I just don't think I would ever do it, because that just doesn't, that's not where I started. Do you feel
Right.
that?
No, because I love a huge budget.
Dude, I don't even know
Yeah.
what I would do with that budget.
I love it when they say there's fucking this much.
Your brain can go there, though. Your brain can imagine that scale.
Yeah,
Yeah, interesting.
because I want things like what a budget gives me is you know, I want to be inside an image.
Mm.
You know, that's always been the kind of a compulsion for me, was to be in an image. And what a budget allows is me to get closer to that. Yeah.
Be interesting.
So you can
That is
technically
interesting.
get technically closer to that. But I don't know. I always start with video. I mean, it's like at the moment, I'm more interested in music than I am in art. I'm kind of going off art. This I don't know if this is the forum to announce how bored I am of art, but I'm I'm definitely more interested in music at the moment.
I agree, to be honest. I just sit sometimes a day of researching. I'm not reading. I'm just playing different tunes and reading the lyrics.
Yeah.
I just read lyrics. That's what I
Yeah.
do most days. I just read like it's a book, but it's a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And listen to the way that they're able to communicate. I do.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you there.
It's that
I
ability.
think that's sort of, sorry, Mark.
No, it's all right.
I think that sort of ties into how you both make, though. You sort of you come across these snippets of things that you love or have loved, and you run with the feeling of that instead of making something and giving it a feeling. It's sort of out with a feeling.
Mm,
So
That's
I
nice.
feel like you'll naturally come in like ebbs and flows of like what you're into and what you're out of.
that's nice.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you.
Here to flatter.
No, but it's not just flattering. It's like it's a good observation, I think.
Yeah, it's nice when someone.
Yeah, because I feel like that. That's how it feels.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
I'm just, you know, what you described before about looking at lyrics, that's basically, you know, that's basically how I make work. It's
Mhm.
like I'm looking at lyrics, not necessarily, but and then there's just a line there and you'll just be like, that's it.
Yeah, do the
That's
same.
that, and it just and that feeling, like you said, that's what you pursue. You pursue that.
Yeah,
Whatever you can see in that or you can feel in that,
yeah,
however it's registered with it, that's what you're chasing, right? That's what
yeah,
that's what propels you to make the work.
totally.
You know, rather than, you know, when I keep going back to being at art college, but that was more like, you know, you have to have some kind of like theory or thesis about what you're going to make. And I just couldn't do that. I couldn't, that just inhibited me from making work, you know. It's like I'm not.
Explain yourself, do you mean?
Or just feeling like I wasn't, you know, I left art school just feeling like I just wasn't intellectually capable of being an artist, you know. I basically left art school thinking I was too stupid to be an artist. I couldn't, you know, the books they were trying to give me to read, I couldn't follow them. I couldn't follow you know, I'd go to lectures and I couldn't really grasp what was going on. And I just thought, this obviously is not what I'm meant to do. You know, an ability to draw didn't seem in any way connected to.
Yeah, you totally get bamboozled when you go to art school.
Yeah, I was taught. I mean, it was good. I enjoyed, you know, I enjoyed being bamboozled, and you know, it wasn't an entirely negative experience, but it definitely left me feeling unable to make work and just kind of created an anxiety about making work. You know what I mean?
I had
It
different.
sort of rolls in. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Chanel. No, I was just gonna say I had different because I was just desperate. I've never felt good in any education ever. I was always treated like always in bottom sets, always just basically a little piss taker until I got to art school. And then I was like, I am going to be the best at this. I have to feel good about this. I know I can do it. I know that I'm good. And so, but I did have a partner at the time that was doing a PhD and that wasn't academic. And I got the privilege of in proximity to someone like that who could really properly teach me in a language that I could understand about stuff that we really deserve to know about and deserve to, you know. But it was, but I definitely had similar vibes. I didn't feel good enough, but I knew that was bad, and I think that's maybe the that was a bad feeling to have, and that wasn't fair. And I think that obviously generationally I knew that I was working class around lots of middle class people who thought that they were smarter than me, and I actually did know that I was smarter than them. I just did, and I was like, well, let's go then, you know. And I think that that's something that I, you know, have a lot of grace and thankfulness for, in terms of the people, the working class people who came before me, who showed the world that they were just as smart, if not smarter, than everyone else.
But no, I love that, just going in. Yeah, I wish I'd gone in. I don't know. You know, you have regrets, don't you, about some approaches, and I'd love to have gone into art school feeling that way.
Well, I think it worked out all right for you, Mark.
Well, but you know, it's a long way around the houses. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, but
So going into like where your sort of work is from and where it can or might exist, I'm going to roll these two questions into one because I feel like they feed into each other quite nicely. So how do you balance creating work around or with marginalised communities with the need to make a living within the commercial art world? And are there any measures or boundaries you have in place when it comes to being asked to exhibit?
It's tricky.
Tricky one.
You know, it is shit a lot of the time, actually. It just does. As I get older as well, as I mature in the job, as I feel more confident, I'm more aware of the wool people are trying to pull over your eyes a little bit. I think, you know, the people taking the piss a lot, basically. They are, and it is confusing, and not confusing. It's hard when it's your job, you know, you need to get paid. And I think all of us do this, no matter what line of work we're in, you know. There's a kind of compromise. I'm trying desperately not to compromise. I say no to most things. I say no to more things than I say yes to, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, I think and that was hard in the beginning, and it still is hard, you know. Like the stuff I'd say no to pay me way more than the stuff that I'm saying yes to, but I can't. My work is my baby, and now I have a duty to look after it, and that would be like letting in, you know, a babysitter that wasn't qualified, you know, or something like that.
That's your boundary then, isn't it? Like to, you know, for your well-being, that would be where you stand with it.
I don't know. I'm learning. I'm still learning about that, and it is difficult because I'm not, you know, an established artist. I'm new. I'm still working my way up, and so there are decisions that I have to make that I don't, you know, it could help or hinder my career, but I put the work and the subject matter first, and I guess therefore I'm putting myself first. But it's the fucking art world, mate. It's cuckoo. They're out here for blood. Yeah, I don't know. Mark's probably better at asking this one more.
I haven't. No, this one's more because I feel generationally different, and you know, I wouldn't say there's such a pressure on me to kind of perform my identity. Do you know what I mean? It's not as, yeah, it doesn't feel like it's so kind of insidious as that. But and so I don't know. I mean, when I started making work, I just thought the only way I can make anything, well, I just like going back to what I was talking about really is by realizing that I had to in some way exploit myself, my own experiences. Do you know what I mean? That this was the engine, like my kind of the things I've been through in my life and the background that I came from, these were part of the things that would allow me to make work, and I needed to make work in order to understand them, or not even to understand them, but to kind of gain a kind of to have some sense of a kind of ownership, maybe, or a kind of that these things, essentially, there's things that haunted me, and I just wanted to, and work was a way to make art about those things, was a way to kind of like exercise them, or just to even make them, just to manifest them, so I could kind of see what they were. Was really helpful for me. Was really useful. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
But at the same time, you recognize that it's also a way of producing work that and then you see that it's like, oh, people are responding well to this, so I can make more of this, And I think I guess that's the boundary you're talking about, is like, how much do you kind of give away? How much do you hold back?
Definitely. And when money comes into it, it is weird, because the people who are responding well, or not the people who are responding well, but the people who are responding who, could help. Oi, stop it. Sorry.
Oh, hello.
How dare you on my talk do this? The people who are responding well are the people who aren't necessarily in the same identity bracket as you, haven't experienced the same thing. And I do constantly question, why are you so interested in me? And I definitely have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. It doesn't feel the nicest experience to be praised and then second guess that praising as to why I am the one that they have chosen. Like when Tate bought my work, I'm the youngest person in the Tate collection. That's fucking crazy, gorgeous, key. But I could not stop for a second and be, all I was thinking was, but why? I'm questioning how easy and how that would look for them that they bought the work, And I think that it's this constant thing of knowing you're good and that you deserve it, but also having to protect yourself from this like vampiric energy,
Yeah.
Sort of rolls in nicely to them. Sorry.
Go on.
So when it comes to like public scrutiny, I don't know how much of it you may have experienced, but how do you sort of navigate it, given the sort of vulnerability of your work? Or is it something you just
I've been
blow off?
Therapy. Real, like I didn't have therapy for so long because I was like, art is my therapy. That's definitely true and it's helped me. But real therapy, real therapists, slay the house down boots, 10 out of 10 would recommend. And as working class lot don't normally, or haven't, been taught necessarily. I definitely wasn't taught that that's the way to do things in the world. You kind of just get your head down and crack on with it. But therapy has helped a lot because there's a lot of emotions in the work that I make. And it just comes from me constantly, like Mark said, kind of like taking it out of your body and putting it outside of yourself so that you can see it. That's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. That's what we do every day, to try and take something out of here and put it in front of us so that we can hold on to it or like make it tangible, something that's real. that's a difficult thing to do when it's being gay, when there's a gaze, when there's a gaze that is, you know, violent almost. And so, yeah, it definitely takes its toll, but I think that there's also a gratification that comes with the generosity of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way, I guess. But yeah, it's spooky. It's a weird life to it's a weird life to yeah be traumatized and then make work about the trauma and then give it away. But yeah, there's definitely pros to it as well.
Yeah.
Mark, what advice would you give to an emerging working class artist who wants to tell their own stories through the art but feel overwhelmed by the emotional toll of it?
Was that for me?
Yeah.
Or for both of it? Was that
And then we've got 5 minutes to wrap up, if that's all right.
Yeah. I mean, there was something. Can I get back to you on that?
It's hard giving advice, I think, when
I don't, yeah, it's the advice bit. I really, that
people,
really undoes me every time.
people ask that advice. It's really difficult because we're constantly having to fight these fires ourselves, as we are as individuals, as people in any job, in any walk of life, whatever, wherever we are, just literally taking it as it comes. And how we do it, I don't know. You know, the strength that comes from it is yeah, past life stuff, I guess. That's not very helpful, but
It's past life stuff, but also I think, you know, you absolutely need to have people around you who are not, you know, you can't be isolated in this. You can't go solo. You know, you need people around you who are able to, like, because it is maddening, and I think it's intentionally maddening. I think they try to make you mad,
yeah,
you know, in order to kind of like a point where you either, I don't know, succumb and become assimilated. I think the art world does a great job of assimilation.
yes.
And at its core, what I've found over the years is the art world is like a court. It's very courtly, and everything gets assimilated to that court. And obviously, the people who hold power there are all, you know, come from the same background and all look like each other and all the rest of it. So that there is a kind of, there is a core. It's not even. It's more. I guess it's more Foucauldian in some ways. It's like it's not literally a court. It's a kind of it's a court that both inhabits the minds of those with power and those not with power. You know, but it's all recognized as a way to behave. There's ways to behave in order to kind of progress. And there's ways to behave in order to get the shows you want or to get the budget you want and all the rest of it, right? And so you just find yourself getting assimilated into that, into becoming that kind of artist, you know. And it
That kind of artist, or is it that kind of person? Because I think that
yeah, good, yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, you can, you know, it's, but then the artists you always look to are the ones who seem to have kind of have been accepted into the core, but at the same time stand outside of it some way, and kind of do seem to have some kind of resistance to it.
there's like a perfect balance, like a cheekiness, for sure.
Like the cheeky. I was going to say that before, like cheeky, like when you were saying before that you went into Central St. Martin's, was just like, well, I'm just going to rinse this out because I'm the best.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that can't really be assimilated as long as you don't go fucking insane trying to maintain it. You know, that's
Certainly periods of time, isn't there, where, you know, you can, like, you're making work, you're doing a show, you feel good, you're like, you know, it's stressful, whatever. And then there's a period of time, I'd say like maybe twice a year for me personally, where I go, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's that spookiness, that insanity that you're talking about, like you feel it creeping in. and it gets closer. And yeah, the things that we do, I guess it is just community. It is being around the people where you came from. Go in terms of nostalgia, go to have a fucking dance, mate. Go and
Yes.
find your working class friends, you know, go and have a pint and go and yeah, I don't know, remember who you are, where you came from.
I think that's really important. I think it's like, you know, you talk about getting back to subculture to link this in, you know, but that, you know, my memory of being like a scally, like a casual and all the rest of it was the power that you wield in a group. And I don't mean just in a threatening, violent way, but just in a beguiling and confusing way. And also that you don't give a shit. You don't give a shit what other people think because you're with your people, right? So you don't give a fuck. And I think that what happens in the art world is you go into the art world and you get individuated, right? So you don't have that around you anymore. So you there's no one there to say, I don't give a fuck to. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
And
That
you need,
impenetrability that you feel when you're in a group.
yeah.
Trying to return to that is hard when you're just by yourself. Even if
Yeah.
you're wearing clothes, babe. Even if you've got your Doc Martens on. Even if you know you've got a skinhead, whatever. If you're wearing you can't be casual by yourself. You can,
No.
right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it comes when there's a group of you together.
Yeah.
And it's lonely. It's lost almost when you're by yourself. And I think, yeah, you're so right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
having that peer network is so important, and
Yeah,
just knowing
exactly.
like you're not like a solo voice. It's like you're a collective voice still.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Even if the
like
stories are all different, you're still working as that.
Yeah,
what
that's why
it's what you're doing here, isn't it? So, you know.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what we try. It's what we're trying to do with everyone in the database.
Totally working like
Absolutely. And I think like the natural sort of friendships networks that have come out of the back of people just mobilizing together. Like it's an organic group and people put in as much as they want to put in. But
my
yeah, it's been gorgeous like seeing the growth of it in terms of who people have met through it, and when we have like maybe a networking event, just like the sharing of stories and it been like really natural as if you've got this common ground already, even though you don't know the person. It's an important resource, I think.
Yeah, my friend Emily Pope, who's an incredible artist, working class legend. We're obsessed with subculture, obviously, but she recently came to me and said that she thinks that the subculture that we're inhabiting right now, because obviously this is a big conversation that comes to me all the time. What is the subculture now? Blah, 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 blah. We never know because everything's merged and, consumerism, capitalism gets involved. But she said that, friendship is the one true subculture that we're navigating right now, and care for each other and loving each other in the small ways that we can is what is, feels like a true subcultural experience. And that is actually what subculture is, always has been. But right now it feels like you can be from anywhere, any kind of other subculture, any kind of like energy and caring for each other. Like that's what brings us together. And I think that that's a really important thing to remember. That's my advice to care for each other, be nice to each other, fuck's sake.
I guess that's the only counter to everything terrible that's going on the other side. It's the only counter to it is this core sort of, it should be fucking kind.
Yeah, be kind and and make sure that you're, look, art's all about it's most of it's confidence, right? I mean, most of the time art is continual doubt and anxiety, and it's one of the things where, when I was talking before about going to art school, is the loss of confidence I had in who I was, you know what I mean? Because I left that behind, right? So you leave that behind, and then and then you go into this other milieu where people perform much better at it. You know, they're good at it, and you're just learning how to be it. And you know, the more, you know, in this conversation, I realized that the part of that thing that I think about that I'm missing was that sense of people around me who reaffirmed my identity, or reaffirmed who I was and where I was from. And if I'd assured that up more, I think the anxieties and doubts I had wouldn't have mattered really in some way, or would have been less, or would have been lessened anyway, at least. I think if you can have, you know, like I said before, the art world's always trying to just, you know, it just wants you in your studio alone, you know, because that makes you more efficient, right? It makes you a more efficient artist. And it's like, you don't want to be an efficient artist, you know. You want to be a resistant artist, right? Which the art world also likes, which is like the problem, right? But it you know, it's I don't know. Anyway, back to music. I think this is, you know, this is what I found in, you know, this is why I like music more. It's there. It's just organically there. It's like music doesn't happen alone, and everyone knows that who makes music. You know, they make it together. You make it together. You have to have some network of people in order just to like make the thing and get it out there, right? So, you know, this is the thing that this is. I don't know. I talked earlier about dialectics. I guess the dialectic for me now is like art and music. It's like how do you the contradictions within art and music? It's like is a way to kind of finding a way to reconcile that is a way of making a better art world, I think.
Yes.
You know. And the art world is like, you know, I had one line. I don't know if this is a good line. I wrote this down today thinking, that's funny. I don't know if it is funny, but I was thinking about like one of your questions was, you know, I guess what we're talking about is like institutions, right? And like, you know, institutions from like trade unions to the church or whatever, you know, a sense of belonging, right? And the thing is, we belong to the art world, but belonging to the art world is like miners belonging to a mine owners club. You know what I mean? It's a fucked up belonging, right? It's not a healthy belonging. And I think the artists have to establish an institution, you know, of themselves, you know, even if they're just very localized. You need to have an institution that isn't just you and the art in the art world, you know, because it will madden you, as I said. I'm just repeating myself now, aren't I? Anyway.
Yeah, it's making loads of sense, but I think that's a good advice. You gave good advice. You said you couldn't, but you did.
Yeah, massively. It just came out organically. There we go.
Well, it's when
I think
people abruptly ask you for advice, isn't it? You just go,
yeah.
It's like you do a talk and people come up and go, have you got any advice for me? It's like, fuck, no, I don't know.
Yeah, don't listen to me.
Yeah, don't listen to me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that wraps it up. I've asked if there's any audience questions, but I'm guessing we've covered them all. It's great. Yeah, thank you so much. It's been gorgeous. Thanks again to Alex and Second Act Gallery for being able to give us the funding to put this on, and also just reaching out to us, wanting to work with us. It means a lot. And yeah, having you both together, it's been great.
Thank you so much.
Really good.
Absolutely incredible. It is difficult, but I'm just happy to be here, and I will do anything that you want me to do ever.
Can I ask before we go? Can I ask what you're doing at the moment? Have you got anything going on at the moment?
Are you asking
In
that?
terms,
I'm asking Rene. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, me. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry. Rene, yeah?
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry. Well, yeah, I'm working towards Freeze. I'm doing the Deutsche Bank Lounge at Freeze, which actually should have come up in this conversation, which is
Yes.
But yeah, I've been working on that, so that's October, and then I have a show in Berlin in November at Center of Contemporary Arts, which will be more freeing than the Deutsche Bank Lounge. But it has been lovely, and I'm looking forward to showing. I'm always looking forward to showing, but it's been complicated, you know. That's why I guess we're talking about that maddening. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. What are you doing, Mark? What's popping?
I've got a show in New York, which I kind of feel it's in a, like, the gallery I was with ended up getting kind of absorbed into a bigger gallery. So I've got a show in a kind of Chelsea gallery. Yeah, but it's, you know, it's the same. It's like great, but
Yeah,
you know.
very that. Yeah.
So I'm getting ready for that. And I do music, put music out, doing the show on NTS. I hope you're listening to my NTS show.
Yes, that's sick. NTS are amazing. When's that?
NTS are exactly. NTS are amazing. That's the thing. This is what I was trying to. It's part of what I'm getting at. It's like institutions like NTS that give me hope. You know what I mean? It's like great, and you know, and then, but also in the art world, you know, I should talk about like Conditions. You know them in Croydon.
No,
They're, they're great as well.
you know who else is great? Montez Press Radio. Have you heard of them?
Yeah,
Mhm.
they're great as well.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I think anyone who's lending a platform for music, or where music is like the departure point, they just have it right. Like there's
Yeah.
just that element that we're searching for, I suppose, that in terms of nostalgia, or that subcultural element, that punk.
Yeah.
And there's something that feels really unfiltered and I don't know, unprohibiting about it. So yeah, I think we're in the same boat there. It feels more freeing than the art world.
Yeah.
Right, I have to go because my dog is sobbing at the door. Telling me to die.
Lovely talking to
Thank
you.
you so much. Good luck with it all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Cheers. Mwah. Lots of
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Great. Thank you very